Welcome to Knife Thoughts. This video is going to be on these knives, and these are the Great Eastern Cutlery Farm and Field Tool Tractor Knife on the new number 96 pattern. And so first of all, I want to talk about the pattern. So this is a new pattern for Great Eastern Cutlery. This is the first knife that they have done on the pattern, and there's a little bit of an interesting story to that. So Randy Bell, who was the designer at GEC for years, has designed really many of their most loved knives, if not most of their most loved knives, recently retired. And he's a great kind of character. He's great to talk to and learn from about knives and the design process. And this pattern was the last pattern that he designed for GEC. Now, he designed the pattern, but didn't end up getting to design a bolster before he retired. So he said they didn't have a bolster designed for it, so they made it as a farm and field, which don't have bolsters. So kind of an interesting thing, just being that it is the last pattern that Randy designed, and kind of a cool send-off for him, and also just a really interesting knife. So first of all, this is a very large knife. I believe that this is the largest knife that GEC has ever made. So here is just one that I grabbed there. This is a 45, which is a very thick knife, but not as long. Here is a 97, so kind of the adjacent pattern, and you can see it is very long also, but I believe the 96 is slightly longer. So it's a very, very big knife. It's bigger than, the 21. I don't have a 21 right now to show you, but it is a large knife. And so, I'm not sure if that's the main reason why they decided to go with, the tractor knife theme, but I was excited to see it because my father-in-law is a farmer. He has cows and, makes hay and, all of that. And he uses tractors all of the time. I have a tractor and use it for, plowing my driveway and mowing some paths and things like that. I'm not, a farmer. I'm trying to learn more, but it's something where my father-in-law has and uses tractors regularly, and my son loves tractors. He loves getting to hang out with my father-in-law and sit on his tractors and things like that. And so I was just excited to, get something and give one to my father-in-law. Now, they made this orange Delrin version, which, first of all, I guess I should mention, one of the reasons why it's a tractor knife is because it has this tractor jigging. So, traction jigged. It's traction jigged. And so it looks like tire tracks, right? Like tractor tire tracks. And so I really like it. A lot of people didn't really like it, but I think it's really cool. It definitely looks like tire tracks. Like my wife and son both immediately recognized that it looks like tractor tire tracks. But they made this version in orange Delrin, and then they made a muslin micarta version. So they've used muslin micarta quite a bit. I think they just have a good bit of it. And this muslin micarta version, in the traction jigging, there was actually, kind of dark area. It was either dyed or just from the process of, milling out that traction pattern. So it was dark. So a lot of people thought this one looked like a bratwurst. And it did, honestly. But I wanted to dye one of the muslin ones red. And the reason for that is because I have a Kubota tractor, which are orange. So this fits my tractor perfectly. But my father-in-law uses Case International Harvester tractors, which are all red. And so I wanted to dye one red. I got one to give to him and gave it a shot. Now, the first time I tried to dye this, it didn't really take much of the dye at all on the flats here. And the reason for that, I think, is because it seemed like these flats actually had kind of an area, I always forget what the material in micarta other than the fabric really is, but whatever that was, there's kind of like a clear layer over top of the fabric. So the dye couldn't get through there. Now, I also made a big mess of the dyeing process. I don't recommend doing it in your kitchen. My wife was real concerned, but I got it all cleaned up. You know, bright red dye on the counters and stuff like that. But I dyed it. It didn't go great. The other thing is it started to patina the blade. And so, you know, that wasn't really what I wanted, but I ended up sanding it. So I just hand sanded these flats. Obviously, as you can see here, I didn't do a perfect job, but I sanded it and dyed it again, and it took the dye much better that time. So I wish I'd sanded it first, but the second time it got a lot more patina on the blade. And so it was actually much darker than this initially, but I used a sunshine cloth to polish off some of the patina, but not so much that I would lose that tractor etch entirely. So speaking of that, I'll show you the tractor etch on mine. Hopefully it will focus. You can see that it says tractor knife, farm and field tool, and it has that cool little tractor drawing. So I really like the etch, and I really wish that I hadn't patinaed this. What happened basically is I had it setting like this in the pot, and you know the dye was up to here, and it boiled and covered the blade. So I'm pretty frustrated by that, to be honest, because I really wanted my father-in-law to get to see that, but I'll show it him on mine, I guess. But anyway, I'm going to give it to him still. And I did sharpen it. Now, one thing that I will say with both of these, they have a couple things that you know are imperfections. So first of all, the sharpening on both of these was not great. That's pretty honestly expected with GEC. It's actually that's always the weird thing with it, is that GEC will, you know, have fine sharpening, but then the tip is like really, really thick, wide. And that was the case on both of these. I really had to, you know, re-bevel towards the tip, and, you know, again, did on both of them. Then the other thing is that both of them are actually the same off-center. They're kind of like both off-center to the pile side. Not rubbing, I wouldn't really call it an issue on a farm and field knife, just something that I wanted to point out. Like, it's not going to bother me. I'm going to actually keep this like at my tractor. I just have it back inside for the video, but I'm going to keep this with my tractor and use it. And this one, I know my father-in-law won't notice or care that it's a little off-center. I did also drop the kick on both of these. They weren't proud, but they were really close, and I just decided why not, right? And it's still, neither of them have any blade wrap. The action is pretty good. It's relatively tight, which I think is a good thing for these, because the last run of 21s, at least the one that I had pretty noticeable blade play. These do not have any blade play, and with those bird's eye pivots, they shouldn't develop any blade play. So, you know, really big knives, really cool knives in my opinion. I personally really like them. I would have loved to have seen a red linen micarta version of this. I know, you know, they've done the 21 in red linen micarta and the 71. Really would have loved to see that, so that I didn't have to kind of mess one up by dyeing it myself. But either way, I think they're really cool. I have used mine just a little bit, but I will plan to keep using it, continue to have it with my tractor and use it, and I hope my father-in-law likes this one. But I'll go ahead and tell you that I do not suggest trying to dye yours. I think that it just doesn't take the dye very well. But another really interesting and cool knife from Great Eastern Cutlery. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel, click the bell, and select all so you know when I post new videos. Check out my website, knifethoughts.com, where I post articles on knives like this and knife-related topics. And last but not least, as always, don't forget to go out and do good.